Well, yesterday was a proud day for us Bengalis, and as every Bengali would say, we don't require international regulation or recognition to understand the importance of Durga Pujo. That's one event which we all wait for through the year. But yesterday, of course, I think it was a feather in the cap. And one of the women behind it, the one who made it possible, who provided that research, and I'm told for over 2 years, is Taputi Guha Thakurta. Thank you so much. I just want to know from you, what was the backroom kind of research and work that you were doing?
I should begin by saying I'm a bit embarrassed to see up there that I'm the woman who made it possible. That's far from the truth. As you know, the Durga Pujas is a huge collective endeavor involving people at every level, from the highest police officials to the humblest of artisans who tie the bamboos. So, my position here was only that of a scholar and a researcher. And I think it's just a matter of luck and good chance that this dossier made the mark and went through. Okay, the background research is what you wanted to do. So that's where I go back a long way, because in the early 2000s, around 2002 3, I began with a team of researchers to do a book on the pujas of contemporary Kolkata. And my focus was to look at the community pujo, the Sarvajanin pujo, but also more and more, I was interested in looking at new categories of artists and designers who were coming into the fray. And they were turning the pujo into a public art event of kind. So, along with the traditional idol maker and pandal makers, the decorator firms, you had a new category of young people, young, slightly senior people, many of them with art college training, who were taking to Durga Puja as a forum for public art. They were bringing different folk art traditions, doing tableaus around it. They were doing what they called a new kind of conceptual installation art around Puja. Now, as an art historian, that is what drew me to the event. And over several years, I did that research. That took me to puja organizers, artists, clubs, and also civic officials. I talked to the police. I talked to the I talked to pollution control board. I was looking at civic administration too. Now, I never thought I would be doing an advocacy of the Pujo for the Ministry of Culture and UNESCO. I must say, as a scholar, we work in our own little niches and retreats. And my book came out in 2015. It was really a very long time. I did the research over more than 10 years. And the book is called In the Name of the Goddess, the Durga Pujas of Contemporary Kolkata. And the title tells you that in the name of the goddess is still at the center. She's the central protagonist. She features in every advertisement, be it computers or surgeries or anything. But in her name, a lot happens. Artists come together, communities come together, awards are given, there's huge consumer splurge. It's the biggest consumer event also on the city's calendar. And it's an exhibitionary event where people actually go around looking at imaginary villages, at monuments from across the world, so that it becomes like an imaginary make believe place where during the tour, one course of one tour, you can move from a tribal art village to the Paris Opera House. You could visit Harry Potter's castle. You could see folk art from across different parts of India. And you could even sometimes see remakes of Calcutta's own buildings, the Calcutta High Court, the Senate Hall. All of those were up for viewing. So it becomes like a popular spectacle. I was interested in the artistic component and how there's really a burst of creativity at this time, ranging from the village craftsmen to the most senior art college trained designers. Now, the entire matter is ephemeral, as you know. It all happens, there's a huge build up, and at the end of it all, it's made to be destroyed. The idols usually go into the river. Now they're stripped of all their ornaments, color, paint, everything. The pandros are recycled. Some of this art gets sold to the suburban pujas. So it's like a cyclical event. The whole puja is about that. So I was interested in ephemerality also as an issue, that it happens, there's an intensity, there's a frenzy, and then it recedes. But the planning for the pujo takes up the full year. It's by far the biggest landmark event in the city. Now, having done this research from 2003 onwards, when the ministry approached me in 2018, a lot of the background research was done. So that was an advantage that I had an archive of images, publicity material, newspaper cutting. This was still a pre digital era, and then we were moving into digital. So that the fact that the ministry searched out a field expert is unusual. Usually they get a group within their circles or within the Sangeet Natak Academy who handles festival performances and rituals for the intangible cultural heritage. Now, I'm
But
not part of
also,
the.
Taputi, but also,
Yes.
Taputi, have you over the years noticed a change in the kind of Durga Pujo in Kolkata? Because in Kolkata, what is special about the Durga Pujo in Bengal is what we say the decorations. Like in Delhi, where I am, over here it's more about art and culture, getting the artists down from Kolkata, singers coming and all that. But in Kolkata, the focus is on decoration, the lighting from Chandanagar and so on. But have you seen a shift? Would you say a commercialization has come in? It's now become
The
a more political tool.
commercialization has been part of the event for at least the last 3 to 4 decades, right? So that itself is not new. You could say the scale of corporate sponsorship, advertising, awards, yes, it's gone overboard. There's a lot of actual commercial clutter, I would say. And as a result, the artwork on display, the craft work on display often gets lost in this. And I think these are issues which we now need to think more carefully about. Now, the change came in the aesthetic of the pujo. The Chandanagar lighting never went away and it's back again. So there's some pujos which place a premium on a lot of glitter and spectacle on scale. The Sri Bhumi Pujo is one of them. But I was looking at a different marker where the emphasis was much more on a certain artistic quality rather than on scale and glitter and ostentation. That is where the puja was often humble. It had the look of a village tableau, or it had the look of something small, elegant, need not have had a very big budget puja. This was something I was tracking during the 2000s, the first decade of the millennium. And that is what I saw reaching a peak by the second decade of the millennium. There's been a lot of politicization of the Pujo too, and that
Yes.
itself has meant that often the artist gets sidelined by councillors. And we know that for the present government, the Pujo as a secular festival, not as a Hindu religious festival, as a secular cultural festival, has been a major cultural platform for the government. It's a way in which the chief minister herself inaugurates hundreds of pujos, creates a farewell parade for the best pujos who go down Red Road towards uh, the Ganges for the last immersion. So there's a way in which many, many things have changed really in the last 2 decades. So, what is interesting to me about the
Exactly.
festival is that it is a continuously transforming and transmuting phenomenon, even though at the core of it, the ritual dates of the calendar, the goddess's Mohalai, the goddess's arrival, her departure, they are absolutely rigidly kind of followed. Similarly, all the rituals have never really gone away. So the liturgical domain remains in place. But around it, what has grown is a huge community event, a public street event, and yes, it's like a city-wide exhibition of art, craft, monumental replicas, tableaus, and artistic kind of creations. Sometimes it's the craftsperson being guided by senior artists. Sometimes it's art college students working together. So I think all of this were new trends that I saw really unfolding over the last 2 decades. So
Yes, absolutely.
when the UNESCO thing came, I think this is what we wanted to highlight. Because one of the things the UNESCO was keen on when they were looking at festivals, and there are a lot of festivals across the world. Even in this nomination, there's a Corpus Christi festival in Panama which has made the list. Now, their interest in festivals is to see how far the community is involved in it. That they don't want, they are less interested in festivals which are run top down. They are much more interested in something like the Durga Pujo, which is actually run by around 4,000 clubs in the city, right? There are coordinations, the civic administrations lead that. They were also interested in issues like cultural inclusiveness. So, how far are different groups outside, say, a purely religious community of worship? How far are they involved? We know that the artisans and artists who work on the pujo come from across the religious divide of Hindus and Muslims. When we come to spectators, we know people from across religions visit the pujo because it's like Christmas. All of Calcutta is out in the streets. You don't have to be Christian for that, right? Similarly, for Durga Pujo, everybody's out in the streets. It's a big city street-wide event. So I think these were the factors. They wanted to look at new gender changes in gender roles. Now, very interestingly, the women of the para were always involved in the ritual event. Now they're publicity people. They speak to the TV cameras, they receive the awards. Many of them dance vigorously during the Visarjan Jatra. So women have come to the forefront almost as organizers. They carry the public face of the puja, not just the ritual. And then there are artists of all age groups who have today made a livelihood and a creative vocation out of their
Absolutely.
work.
And I think that's true of most festivals, but Durga Puja is something which many Bengalis outside of Bengal, especially Kolkata, want to go back home to. And you know something, Rapati, I'm very ashamed to say this. I still haven't seen a Durga Puja in Kolkata. I'm stuck in Delhi all the time. So next year, hopefully, and not just because it's got that international recognition, but thank you so much, Rapati, for joining us. And you've also been one of the persons who's made it happen. So congratulations to you and
But
thank you for taking time to us.
only one of the persons. Actually, the credit goes to the organizers, the artists, the full team. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.